Thank you for joining us today for a conversation about you and your work. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sophia. I'm kind of honored that you're letting me talk to you about my work.
We're so happy to have you here. We wanted to begin with having you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first became interested in art.
I guess I always like to talk about my background, and I think that gives context to people of like why I'm doing things and how I structure the way I think with my work. So I was born in Hyogo, Japan, in a really small town called Ikuno. It used to be a mining town. So it's out in the mountains, really empty. And I always liked doing art. Like I got a huge kick out of drawing and like doodling and stuff. So I think my mom really noticed that. And she enrolled me in actually a bunch of different classes. Specifically, the one that I liked the most was my Friday art class. And we would go into the city. And I think it was probably about an hour long. And in that art class, the teacher kind of taught us like oil painting, really simple printmaking, and things like that. My mom also brought me to a shuji school, which is calligraphy, but I don't think I was good at it. I'd get paint, I think, more on my hands than anything else. So I really credit my mom for encouraging me to kind of getting into art. And then I just continued on, whether it was a lot at sometimes or not a lot at sometimes. But it's something that I kind of like have to do in order to like stay sane. Maybe it's just something that I really need.
Was your mother an artist as well?
I would say so. She did embroidery. She also did shuji. She also did ikebana. She took a lot of classes too. And I have one of her old embroidery works that she did from back in high school that my grandparents owned. And I credit her. And my dad was really into like drawing. And I think he wanted to be a manga artist at one point. So I'm sure that like subconsciously influences me. And they've been really supportive and encouraging of my own interests too.
Was there like one or two pivotal moments that made you say, oh, I'm definitely going to become an artist. This is it. This is what I want to do.
I mean, as I said, I was always doing it. But I think in high school, I started carrying around a notebook, like a sketchbook. And my mom would borrow books on Art Nouveau. And that really was like, wow, I want to do something like this. So I would copy a lot of the drawings. I think the artist's name was John Turup. I would copy a lot of his drawings. And then that eventually building up to going to Kapiolani Community College. So getting a more formal education with art made it a bit more serious. Like, okay, I want to do this. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do it or make a career out of it. But there's people around me who are supportive, and going to a community college, that was like my beginning point. And especially working with one of my instructors, Russell Sinabe, he gave me the space, the feedback, constructive feedback that I needed. So I think those were like my building pivotal moments that helped me continue on doing work.
Absolutely. That seems so key to having the kind of support network and encouragement to go forward. Let's take a look at your works, and especially your latest body of work, the Neo Ceremony. Yeah. Your work is incredibly powerful. It has just these saturated colors and minimalist design. Could you tell us a little bit about the origins of your work and the themes that kind of surround them?
I would say the more recent series is, I think, my most mature and more fully realized work. And that is like an accumulation of moving to different places. So one, moving from Japan to the US, that being really difficult and being away from family, cultures, and things that I knew. And then once again, so living in Hawaii was difficult at first, but then that was my new home and I get really comfortable living there. And this cycle of moving again to California was reminding me like how emotionally and physically I am distant from home, and trying my best to remember things and to stay close to these traditions and specific customs that I grew up learning in Japan. And most recently, for this body of work, in 2020, I had a few family members pass away, and because of the pandemic, I wasn't able to travel, which meant I wasn't able to go to the funerals in Japan while I was able to go to a funeral in the US. So that was extremely difficult, and I was really sad about it. And it was my own way of doing my remembrance of family members and a memorial, and also realizing how unfamiliar I am with Japanese Buddhist traditions, and realizing like, oh, I don't really know as much as I thought I did. Or especially when I talk to my dad, he sometimes says like, oh, your Japanese sounds kind of weird. So just these realizations that I have, and it sucks sometimes, but it's okay. I've moved so much and I've been in different places.
It seems to me that, a lot of your paintings have kind of multiple ways of understanding.
Yeah.
And kind of negotiating between spaces. And negotiating between identities. So maybe we break that down a little bit.
So the idea of creating space for myself, one, it's like specifically for this series, space to mourn, space to kind of remember people. And also, again, this idea of being in a very distant place and wanting to feel close to family members and culture that is so far away from me, even, and especially at a time when we can't really travel that much. And for me, I guess simplifying the images with simple forms is something a bit new to me in comparison to my older works. And I guess it's just a development of the paintings that I've been doing from the past, but also something about like, I wanted like simpleness, especially in like the way that I was feeling. I needed simpleness. I needed things to be quiet. Those were the main ideas, and those literally, I guess, became, like in this painting, a conversation between orchids, like 3 kind of oval round forms overlapping each other. A lot of times it's not necessarily, I think, easy to read non-representational painting. So that also relates to like affect and sensation that I'm having towards these situations, the way that I'm feeling, and things that are more unseen and that are felt. And I think the softness and the kindness that these shapes have, they're more gentle and they're not so aggressive. And those all play into the work. And I'm very much a formal person. I really pay attention to formal qualities of my work. And those are just the reasons behind some of these paintings. And a lot of times they reference each other. So I'll do one painting and then I'll think about, oh, I want to do another one, but more developed version. So Waiting on the Roof with butterflies, that was one of the first more simplified forms, and that led into a conversation between orchids. So the painting itself have their own conversation in terms of form and idea,